Who do you trust when love and loyalty are stripped bare, revealing only ambition and betrayal? How do you see clearly when darkness surrounds you, and those closest mask their true intentions? Adanna had it all: beauty, wealth, and a powerful heart that only asked for genuine love. But now, blinded by fate and surrounded by shadows, she begins to question everything and everyone she ever believed in. As familiar scents linger and secrets deepen, she must uncover the truth before everything she holds dear is lost. But is it already too late?
Like and subscribe.
In the grandeur of her father's mansion, Adanna's laughter echoed like wind chimes on a spring morning. As the only daughter of Chief Okwudili, a billionaire and oil magnate, Adanna had grown up in a world of shimmering chandeliers, sprawling estates, and elite gatherings where everyone adored her. Her beauty was undeniable, her intelligence sharp, and her business acumen unmatched as she led her father's vast company with grace and precision. But beneath her serene exterior lay an ache, a yearning for companionship that wealth could not fill. Many men flocked to Adanna, parading their intentions like peacocks, each hoping to win her heart and, perhaps more than anything, gain access to her fortune. Lavish gifts arrived daily: diamond-studded watches, imported perfumes, sports cars parked on her family's driveway, all attempts to sway her. Yet, none of these men touched her soul. She saw through the glint in their eyes, detecting an ambition that had nothing to do with love. One of her most persistent suitors was Kelechi, the son of a powerful senator, whose ambition to win Adanna's hand knew no bounds. Kelechi was a man who left nothing to chance, and he believed that wealth and charm could unlock any door, including Adanna's heart. He began his pursuit with subtle gestures, sending her rare flowers flown in from distant countries, each bouquet accompanied by a handwritten note that waxed poetic about her beauty and intelligence. When flowers and words failed to capture her attention, he escalated. One evening, Kelechi orchestrated an extravagant event just to impress her. He hired a fleet of luxury cars to arrive at her estate, each car filled with bespoke gifts, silk dresses embroidered with her initials, handcrafted jewelry from the finest artisans, and bottles of vintage wine with her name etched on the label. He even hired a private chef from Paris, known for cooking for royalty, to prepare a feast in the gardens of her family's mansion. The chef had crafted an elaborate menu tailored to Adanna's tastes, and Kelechi made sure every detail of the evening echoed with opulence. But that wasn't enough for Kelechi. He needed something grander, a gesture that would turn heads and leave Adanna with no doubts about his devotion. A few days later, Kelechi surprised her with a gift unlike any other. He had bought a private island off the coast, and on it, he built a luxurious villa in her honor, complete with sprawling balconies that opened to the ocean, gardens filled with exotic blooms, and a helipad for swift getaways. The centerpiece of the villa was a marble fountain engraved with her initials, surrounded by sculptures of Adanna's favorite animals. Kelechi invited Adanna for a weekend at the villa, intending to dazzle her with its grandeur and declare his undying affection. She accepted out of politeness, curious to see the extent of his efforts but still guarded in her heart. As they toured the island, Kelechi spoke of a future filled with endless luxury, painting vivid images of life lived in utter opulence, as though their union was a business merger that would cement power and influence for generations. Yet, as they dined on a terrace overlooking the sunset, Adanna felt a growing emptiness. Kelechi's words were hollow. He never asked her about her dreams, her passions, or her values. His vision of love seemed entangled with her inheritance, his gaze lingering on her as if she were a prize he'd already claimed. She realized, as the last of the sunlight faded over the horizon, that he didn't see her, he only saw the wealth she represented. Kelechi's grand gesture, while impressive, had failed to ignite her heart. In her search for genuine companionship, Adanna found solace only in her childhood friend, Nkem, who knew her long before her family's empire grew. Nkem was one of the few constants in her life, always there to remind her of simpler times when their biggest worries were nothing more than school exams and neighborhood games. Nkem would visit often, and together they would laugh and share memories, but even that didn't completely ease the void in Adanna's heart. In her company, working quietly and without fanfare, was a young man named Emeka. He was an assistant manager in one of her departments, a role modest by the standards of her empire. He rarely spoke to her directly and never dared approach her with the boldness of other men. Instead, he showed her quiet gestures of respect, and every interaction was marked by a humbleness that intrigued her. Unlike others, Emeka didn't shower her with gifts. He simply offered her genuine smiles, a listening ear, and occasionally made her laugh with his witty, unassuming humor. Their friendship blossomed slowly. She began looking forward to her encounters with Emeka, finding comfort in his kindness and simplicity. Adanna felt at ease with him, and for once, she could just be herself. Their bond grew strong, and soon Emeka dared to confess his feelings. He proposed, his heart laid bare, with no wealth to offer, just his loyalty and love. Her parents and Nkem were stunned by her choice. "Adanna, he's just a staff member in our company," her mother had said, eyes wide with disbelief. "Think about your status, your future. You could have anyone." Nkem, too, voiced her doubts. "Ada, are you sure about this? He isn't from our world. He'll never understand the life you lead." But Adanna only smiled, brushing off their concerns. "Love matters more than status," she replied, feeling certain that Emeka's love was true. The wedding was small and intimate, much to her parents' reluctance, but Adanna was radiant with joy. For the first time, she felt whole, and her heart sang in ways she had never known before. Their marriage began beautifully. Emeka's modesty complemented her confidence, and together they built a life that felt sincere, not drenched in materialism or pretense. But as months turned into years, subtle cracks began to form in their perfect union. Emeka started to spend more and more time away, buried in work or otherwise preoccupied. Adanna found herself alone again, with only Nkem visiting from time to cheer her up. She tried to ignore the nagging loneliness, but the silence of their once vibrant home now felt ominous. Then, one night, tragedy struck. Adanna was driving home after a late evening at the office when her car swerved off the road and collided violently with a tree. The accident was brutal, and by the time she was rushed to the hospital, her world had plunged into darkness. She awoke to the sound of a doctor's voice, calm but grave. "I'm sorry, but there's significant damage. You may not be able to see, at least for a while." The words shattered her. She returned home, trapped in a world of shadows, her once brilliant life now reduced to darkness. Emeka grew increasingly distant, and she sensed a change she couldn't place. He came home late, often with the scent of a woman's perfume lingering on his clothes, a familiar fragrance she couldn't quite identify. Though she couldn't see, she heard muffled laughter, whispers, and movements that suggested he was no longer alone. Her instinct screamed betrayal, but she clung to hope, convincing herself that it was just her imagination playing tricks on her. One night, as Emeka returned home unusually late, Adanna heard the rustle of another woman's presence. They moved through the house, their hushed tones blending with the night. Then she heard laughter, her husband's, and that of another woman, coming from her own bedroom. Anguish clawed at her heart as she lay in bed, pretending to be asleep, feeling her marriage crumble around her. As time went on, Adanna began to notice faint glimmers of light piercing through the darkness. Shapes and shadows, blurred at first, gradually formed around her, as if the world was unfolding behind a veil. She kept this transformation hidden, silently marveling as her sight grew clearer by the day. The familiar colors of her home reappeared in a foggy haze, the outlines of her loved ones slowly sharpening. And she kept on pretending to be blind. As the days passed, the whispers grew louder. One night, she overheard Emeka and his companion talking, and the shock pierced her like a knife. The woman was Nkem, her childhood friend, her confidant. The scent she had recognized was Nkem's perfume, the same one she'd worn since they were young. Every morning, like clockwork, Nkem would arrive at Adeora's side, her presence a source of familiar warmth, if only on the surface. She would bring Adanna fresh flowers, pour tea, and settle beside her with an air of concern, speaking in a low, conspiratorial tone. The sympathy in her voice never felt quite genuine to Adanna, but she concealed her doubts behind a practiced smile, pretending to appreciate her friend's comfort. It was during these visits that Nkem would slyly criticize Emeka, Adanna's husband. She would make cutting remarks about how he was neglecting his poor, helpless wife and speculate on how his business trips and late nights were certainly signs of a man falling short of his marital vows. A man like that, she would say with a bitter tone, should be ashamed, leaving his beautiful wife alone in such a state. If only you could see what he's really like, Adanna. He isn't worthy of you. Adanna, nodding along, held her secret close. One night, paralyzed by disbelief, Adanna listened as they planned to claim her fortune for themselves. Once she signs those documents, everything will be ours, Nkem whispered, her voice laced with cold intent. Adanna's heart broke anew, but she stayed calm. She knew she had to act carefully. She reached out to her lawyer, quietly replacing all original property documents with forgeries that bore no legal weight. She confided only in him, and they devised a plan to bring Emeka and Nkem's scheme to light. The night came when Emeka and Nkem finalized their betrayal. Believing she was oblivious, Emeka presented the last document for her signature. With a steady hand and a feigned smile, Adanna signed the document, knowing it was the final step in her calculated trap. Emeka, visibly smug, took the papers and left her side, not suspecting a thing. That night, she lay in bed, her mind swirling with anger and heartbreak as she waited for the betrayal to unfold in full. She had set her plan in motion, yet her heart ached knowing the extent of Emeka's and Nkem's treachery. She could barely sleep, haunted by the echo of their laughter and the memories of happier times. The next morning, Adanna contacted her lawyer, who in turn arranged for the police to be ready to intervene. Her heart raced with a mix of dread and anticipation as she waited for the events to play out. Late in the evening, Adanna overheard Emeka and Nkem in the study, celebrating what they believed was their triumphant takeover. "Imagine," Nkem murmured, laughing softly, "we have everything now. The properties, the shares in the company. Soon we'll have control of it all. And she'll be left with nothing." Emeka chuckled, his voice laced with mockery. She never saw it coming. Blinded by love, literally and figuratively, he sneered, and Nkem laughed along, the sound cruel and sharp. Unable to bear it any longer, Adanna stood and made her way toward them, keeping her expression composed. Her footsteps were soft as she approached the study, but her heart thundered with each step. She paused at the door, letting their voices drift toward her one last time. "You've played the perfect part," Nkem cooed, resting a hand on Emeka's shoulder. "Now we just have to sell the properties off, one by one, and split the earnings." The two of them laughed, caught up in their illusion of victory. But Adanna, ready to strike, drew in a steadying breath and stepped into the room. "Oh, you won't be splitting anything," she said, her voice calm but laced with a simmering rage. Nkem and Emeka froze, their laughter dying instantly. They turned, wide-eyed, as if seeing a ghost. "Adanna," Nkem stammered, her face draining of color. What are you doing here?" Emeka tried to play innocent, his face a mask of feigned confusion. "Adanna, you should be resting. You." "Save it," she cut him off, her tone steely. "I may have lost my sight temporarily, but I haven't lost my mind. The silence in the room grew thick as Emeka and Kem exchanged panicked glances. Adanna let them squirm, savoring the moment before she spoke again. "I know everything," she said, her voice deadly calm. "I know about the affair. I know about your scheme to take over my assets. And I know how little respect either of you has for the love and trust one gave you." Emeka tried to laugh it off, but his voice wavered. "Adanna, don't be ridiculous. You're just tired and stressed." She raised a hand, silencing him. "Don't even try," she warned. "I've already informed my lawyer and replaced every document with forgeries. You thought you had stolen my fortune, but in reality, you have nothing." The color drained from Emeka's face as her words sank in. What? Forgeries? But you signed them." "Signed fake documents that have no legal power," she replied, a cold smile playing on her lips. "Your little plan failed before it even started." Before Emeka or Kem could respond, there was a firm knock on the front door. In a swift motion, Adanna gestured toward the hallway. And that would be the police, ready to hear everything. Panicked, Kem tried to plead with her, desperation etched across her face. "Adanna, please, we were just—" "Save your breath," Adanna interrupted sharply. "I thought you were my friend, Kem. I trusted you more than anyone. But you betrayed me in the worst way possible." Emeka, seeing the police enter the room, attempted one last appeal, but his words were empty. His mask had slipped, revealing the calculating man underneath. "I loved you, Adanna," he said, but she only shook her head. "No," she replied quietly, her voice filled with pain but unwavering. "You loved my wealth, my status. And for that, you lost everything." The officers stepped forward, cuffing both Emeka and Kem as they continued to stammer excuses, their voices fading as they were led away. Adanna watched them go, a mix of relief and sorrow settling over her heart. She had triumphed, but at a cost she hadn't expected. In the days that followed, Adanna found solace in reclaiming her life, free of the burdens of betrayal. Her company, her family, and her genuine friends rallied around her, filling her home with warmth and support. Though she had lost her illusions about love, she gained something far more valuable: resilience, self-respect, and the strength to rebuild. And as she looked out over the vast estate that was her own once again, Adanna knew that she would never let anyone take her power from her again. Thank you for watching. We hope you were captivated by the story. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Chukwudi Alola Studio, for more engaging and unforgettable tales. Don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment below.